Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about top 5 guns for newbies. Actually, we're not going to be talking about top 5 guns for newbies because there's already a million videos about that. We're going to be covering how to help a player choose a gun, helping them come up to the right conclusions and the proper way with solutions for people that are not aware of the sport. Ultimately, what I feel is that if somebody wants something, just let them get it. Don't try to push your opinion on them. Don't try to be like, you need this 10,000, 1,000, whatever dollar MTW, ZTW, PTW, super crazy build in order to succeed. The answer is you don't. Everybody here has been clapped by a renter before. And if you're a new player, they obviously have constraints about what they can spend. They don't want to invest as much as us nerds into the hobby. So whenever you're approaching somebody about kit and somebody asks a question like, what gun do I get? What gear do I get? Don't come at them just explaining yourself and putting yourself out there and be like, I have this gun and it's the best gun ever and it has shot 20 million rounds out of it and it's doing great and you should buy it. Approach it from a very basic standpoint, seeing what the requirements are so that way they can properly expect to have a good time when they go in the field and spend their money in a good way. Going into that, the most important thing to a question is actually asking more questions, narrowing down the specifics of what a new person would want. Common question you see on Facebook, Reddit, whatever, is going to be, I want to get into airsoft and I want a new gun. What do I get? What's the best gun? Now, don't look at this and start listing your gun. That's not the question that they're asking. They don't really know anything about airsoft. They're not really sure what to get, what makes a maple gun different from a JG, what makes a VFC different from an ENC, all that stuff. That stuff doesn't matter to them. What's important for them is getting into the sport and getting into it in a good way. Some questions you can ask, and I think the biggest one that is overlooked is, where are you going to play? And that's really important. If they're going to be playing at a CQB indoor field, then you will have to consider something like a spring change in their budget. Importing guns to Canada, I'm not going to get super into it. Most of you guys already know what it's like. They need to shoot above 366 FPS. They often shoot, above 400 or around 400 just to make sure they get in. A noob might not know that. They might buy like a crazy long, awesome outdoor gun and not realize that the place they want to play at requires a certain FPS limit. So the first thing I would ask is, what is your use case of this gun? Where do you want to play? And have you checked out the rules for that place? Our rules are 380 FPS, semi-automatic only. If they want a Glock 18C to use fully automatic, probably not the best choice to recommend them because it doesn't fill the requirements. And if they want that, then you might want to let them know, hey, just be aware that the field that you want to play at doesn't allow you to use the mode of this gun, and this mode breaks the gun faster, something to be aware of. And they can go forward with what they want with that information instead of just blindly recommending things. Another really great question to ask, what's your budget? That's really important to ask because when people, say, what's the best gun? The best gun, let's say this built VFC, this gun is gonna cost them probably like $1,000 with everything on it. Obviously, outside of most people's budgets, and they might get a certain perception about airsoft if you kind of advertise the $1,000 gun to get off the bat because that's the only gun you can get kills with. Not the best idea. So ask them, where do you want to play at and what's their budget? And usually from there, you can start to narrow down kind of the specifics of what they want. Then you might want to say, have you played airsoft before? What's your experience with it? And sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, I have a few things. I have this, and that. Or they might say, I've never played before. What do I need? Now you have to understand what you need to play airsoft is actually pretty minimal compared to a full loadout that most people have. You don't need a helmet. You don't need the best played carry in the world. You don't need fancy Cry BDU pants. You don't need fancy Speed QB HPA rigs. You don't need all that stuff to play airsoft. Essentially what you're going to need is a gun or something that follows the field rules, eye protection, probably face protection, especially the field mandates that are newer, and clothes, shoes, that's it really. When you start naming stuff off, don't be obsessed with the fact that they have to complete their loadout or stuff like that, or dispel the myth that you don't need this stuff. What you will need is you'll need, let's say it's an AG, you're going to need a gun that fits within their budget, that fits within their field limits. You're going to need a battery that works with the gun and the connector, and they're going to need a charger. That's going to be anywhere from an extra, $50 to $100 or something like that. And that's something that you have to actually take into account. take that into consideration with the spring change. That's going to be a little more money on top of that. So don't start recommending them these $600, $700 guns with the $600, $700 loadout before they even can walk. Another thing to take into account is remember where these people are learning about airsoft and where guns are coming from for them. It's usually because they're into video games, real guns, movies, stuff like that. And those things, especially video games and movies, might not teach you about the nuances of airsoft play, airsoft culture, all that stuff. So just be aware of that going into the conversation. They might not know what an FPS, a hop-up, or gear, ratio, motors, and all that stuff is. So don't come swinging out the bat with your big technical knowledge saying that your tappet needs to have this dwell time, that you need this motor, this hop-up, whatever. That stuff doesn't matter to them. Just focus on the basics. Remember to go back to narrowing down what they want and figuring out their knowledge level and meeting them there. So you look like you're educating them and not just bragging about your own technical knowledge. When going into this topic, new players might not necessarily be aware of things like part support, things like finding the right accessories, all these kinds of things that we as lifelong airsofters or longtime players take for granted. So if somebody wants a bit more of a snowflake gun, let's say there's G36 and they're really married to this idea because of a video game, be sure to tell them, hey, the G36 is a great gun and it's awesome, but parts might be hard to find. Do a little bit of research, go on like the local Canadian sites and stuff like that, and kind of look around for stuff. Give them a really well-informed answer. Say, hey, I can't find mags for this anywhere. I can't find pouches for this anywhere. That might be something you want to consider before buying this gun. One thing to also remember is that it's okay to not know everything about airsoft. The sample size of guns that most people has is going to be 1. So if you say that XYZ gun is the best gun ever, be aware how many of those guns have you handled? How many of those have you played around with instead of spitting very dogmatic, very internet Reddit knowledge that they say. It's always good to come from a place of your experience, and it's also okay to admit that you don't know the answer to something and to refer them to someone that does. For example, I don't really know much about pistol teching. I don't really know much about HPA teching. I refer people to the correct parties when I don't know something. So the most common question you're probably going to ask is, I want a sniper rifle, I want to be a sniper. And there's a lot of great snipers out there, and we did a video with Bacon discussing the intricacies of bolt action airsoft play and all that cool stuff. If a newbie comes up to you saying they want to be a sniper, it's probably best to remind them that that's not the greatest idea and what kind of experience that that can entail, especially in a place like Siege where it's indoor. However, ultimately, if they want something, then just accommodate for that and just tell them the limitations, be honest about it instead of down talking them. Be like, well, so here's what I would say if a new player came up to me and they wanted a sniper rifle. I wouldn't say, you're stupid, that's a bad idea, you're playing a CQB field, you're gonna get stomped. Approach it with a bit more nuance. Be like, well, you're in an indoor field and you have to remember that a sniper rifle is spring powered, and with BBs, they all kind of go the same range, at the same FPS with the same hop-up. You're probably going to get outgunned by a lot of people in that kind of environment. That being said, it's up to you if you want to get it. It's really simple, guys. Just be accommodating towards them and don't be condescending. Just be understanding that everybody was a noob once. I'm sure you were a noob once and you wanted something. I know I was a noob once and I made a lot of really, really dumb buying decisions. But it's kind of our job as experienced players to give them a good base of knowledge to go on so that they can go to people that have done this, people that have been there before, and not get dogmatic responses, to actually get critical thinking and responses that encourage them to come up with their own answers. And remember that the fight against C21 is still going on. Recommending guns is cool, having lots of guns is awesome. However, that won't be cool if they get reclassified. So there's links down below on how you can help the efforts to save airsoft in Canada. And that being said, see you later everybody, stay safe out there, and we hope to catch you in the next video.